Hey guys, some really rough news. Just now came down from Bleacher Report. They've got a reporter named Eric Fisher, and Eric is saying that the Clippers are moving ahead as if Paul George is not going to return this season. He hurt his elbow, a ligament in his elbow, and PG hasn't been with him for a while. They've had some really good wins even without him, beating the Brooklyn Nets the other day. Which no one expected. And, there's a lot of optimism around the Clippers. And they were kind of like one of those dark horse teams, like a team that was kind of, chilling there and could be dangerous in the playoffs because, they're winning games without Paul George, a few. The role players look good. Paul George comes back. We got good news on Kawhi Leonard. So a lot of people thought, okay, in the Western Conference, who do we have? We've got the Warriors, we've got the Suns, we've got the Jazz. And then no one quite wrote off the Clippers, right? Because if their superstars got healthy and came back, you never know what they could do in the playoffs. Well, today it looks like all of that has just completely crumbled and that the Clippers season might just be a gap year. And what I mean by gap year is like what the Golden State Warriors have been doing, which is, like when Steph went down, Clay was gone, and then KD left, they treated that first year as a gap year. And no one had big expectations. Maybe they developed some guys. Maybe they tried to work a trade or two to kind of use the gap year as a way to collect assets for that eventual championship run, which the Warriors are on right now. And so maybe the Clippers treat this as a gap year. The big problem is that they don't have their first round pick this season. That goes to the Thunder as part of that big trade that they did to get Paul George. So, if you're a Thunder fan, I mean, you always hate to see anybody get injured, but Thunder fans are loving this news today because it means that the Clippers are probably just going to get worse and worse. I mean, I'm sure part of a player's mentality is like, you know what? We got to keep this ship afloat until our guys get back. Let's go out there and they have extra motivation to maybe punch above their weight and beat a team like the Brooklyn Nets, like they did the other day. But now this has just got to be really deflating for all of those players on the Clippers, knowing potentially our superstar teammates are not going to come back. What's the point of really trying to win tonight? And if they get down by double digits in any game, they think, just that fight isn't there to come back, knowing that PG and Kawhi are not going to come back this season. The reason why I say I don't think Kawhi is going to come back this season is, look, if Paul George is out, we all know Kawhi's mentality. He'll be like, what's the use? Why would I come back to play in the postseason right off of an ACL tear with no Paul George and no realistic chance of winning at all? I think today's news about Paul George potentially being done for the season also means we will not see Kawhi Leonard for the rest of this season as well. Now, it'll make us all really excited to see the Clippers all healthy and back again next season, but it's really a bummer, not just for Clipper fans, but just all NBA fans right now. Because I think we all, regardless of who your team is, we all were looking forward to see what the Clippers could do in the postseason when Kawhi came back. So the injury that Paul George has is an elbow ligament tear. I think it's called a UCL. UCL tear is what a lot of pitchers get. They end up getting something called Tommy John surgery, where they replace that ligament in the elbow, and then a lot of them continue, and they're better than ever. But the other news that comes out of this is the Clippers becoming sellers at the trade deadline. And so, a lot of us, me included, were thinking that the Clippers would try to buy at the trade deadline, maybe flip Eric Bledsoe and like a 2028 first, or maybe BJ Boston, try to get this squad as ready as it can be for when Kawhi comes back and try to treat this year as go and get it, go win an NBA championship, because the West, I'm not going to say it's wide open, but it's not like clear cut like it has been in previous seasons. Like when the Warriors were on top in their dynasty, it's like, dude, you don't want to really blow up your team, sell out your future to try to win this year because the Warriors are going to win this thing. This is not one of those years. This is a year where, any team who is equipped with those superstars and who has had those previous failures in the postseason, you could put it all together this year and win the West. So I was looking forward to the Clippers being buyers at the deadline, and now they could be sellers. And now, if Paul George doesn't come back this season, maybe they just throw the towel completely in on this year and go all in on next year, right? Like sell off all of your decent pieces and try to get as good as you can for next season. So if you're the Clippers, Marcus Morris, what could you get for him? Marcus Morris is under contract for 2 more seasons after this one. And Marcus Morris is a good veteran. So, he's a guy under team control that contenders could potentially want. I think that if you flip Marcus Morris, you could get at least a first round pick for him and replenish the fact that you don't have a first for this season. Now, eventually you'd have to use that first to upgrade later on because a first round pick does nothing for the Clippers. Who else is under contract past this season? Luke Kennard. Could the Clippers now trade Luke Kennard to a contender? Who else? Keon Johnson? Reggie Jackson? I mean, look, I know that he's a Clipper fan favorite, the goggled goat, they like to call him. He was so good for them in the playoffs. Could that make his trade value as high as it'll ever be? Reggie Jackson has played well this season with the offense running through him at times. So is his trade value as high as it will ever be? I think so. I think trading Reggie Jackson would be a fantastic idea for the LA Clippers. So I would put on the trade block if I was the Clippers. I would try to trade this season Marcus Morris, Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, Serge Ibaka. I don't think Justice Winslow has shown us enough for him to actually be a trade piece. I think everybody on the Clippers should be on the table to trade except for Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Terrence Mann. Those are the 3 that they should keep for sure. Ivica Zubac, I'm not sure how much trade value he has. Very little. And so with all of the other pieces out the window, what should the Clippers now target if Paul George really is out for the season? You're going to throw this year away and go all in on next year. They have to target a point guard. The ball handling and the playmaking of Kawhi and Paul George has increased in previous seasons. But to have those 2 wings with somebody to set them up is something that the Clippers have lacked. And I think that it would raise their postseason ceiling. So I think they should definitely target a point guard. They also need to target a center. I know that Isaiah Hartenstein has been better than we expected, but that's not actually going to matter when the playoffs come. I think that they should target a center who can stretch the floor. Serge Ibaka used to be that guy when he was on the Raptors. That's the last time that we saw Serge Ibaka be like at a, I don't want to say championship caliber, although he was, but a really above average center. It was a few years ago, right? But Serge Ibaka has gone down and down. They need to replace Ivica Zubac if they can. I think he's just an average center. And his skill set, it's kind of limits what they can do, the fact that he can't stretch the floor. So I think that they should really target a point guard, a center, and then obviously you need depth, but I think the depth is overrated in the postseason. So look, if they can get an above average center who can stretch the floor and a true point guard, not a point guard like Damian Lillard who score first, but a point guard who really does set the table, but he can score if you need to. Someone like Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has been the Mavericks' second best player this year. Now, I'm not saying to get Jalen Brunson because the Mavs might want him, but the fact is that Jalen Brunson's contract is coming up, and do the Mavericks really want to lock into Jalen Brunson for like $18 million a year going forward? I'm not so sure that they do. So if I'm the Clippers, I get to trade him. Look, if you are the Mavericks and you aren't willing to give Jalen Brunson that contract, would you take a Marcus Morris? Would you take a shooter like Luke Kennard? I think so. And those are the kinds of moves that the Clippers are going to have to do now if Paul George is done and Kawhi is done. If you're a Clippers fan, you kind of mourn right now because that sucks. the whole reason this season was fun is because you were just hoping and waiting for when your two guys got healthy again, right? You can mourn the fact that this season is over. You can, right? But then in a week or two, when we kind of get used to this idea of, okay, well, shoot, they're not coming back. This season is just a complete throwaway. Once you get used to that idea, then let's start thinking about next season. Okay, how can we put the Clippers in the best position possible to be a legit contender next season? Take advantage of the fact that this is a gap year. Start trading your good role players to contenders. Get assets back, either assets that can directly help you next year or assets that you can flip again this offseason and turn into good playoff pieces. So, look, it's totally cool. If Clippers fans are bummed today, you're allowed to be bummed. But then, like next week, once you're used to this idea, start thinking about how to go all in on next season, baby. It sucks for me. You guys know that Kawhi Leonard is my favorite player. We're probably not going to see Kawhi this year. Sucks. All right, so really, that's my reaction to this horrible news. What do you guys want to like hang out for a bit and talk, ask questions? Just let me know what you're thinking right now. I will obviously super chats are more than welcome, but what do we have here? Timo, what up, Timo? As a Mavs fan, I don't think that we would never trade him for Kennard or someone like that. I think that we will extend him. Maybe. We'll see, man. Funnily enough, Lonzo has become a good fit for most teams at point guard with talent on the wings. Yep, but he is totally taken. Not related, but no. I mean, I came into the season thinking we weren't going to do anything because Kawhi isn't here. Yeah, dry ice. But then how did you feel when you heard the good Kawhi news the other day? Paul George is coming back. Not even real source said he's out. Dude, I'm agreeing. That's why I put potentially in the headline of this video. But I think that you do have to call Bleacher Report a real source, don't you? This isn't like, some random fan blog or whatever. Don't you? I mean, who said that? Somebody said that. Not a real source. Not a real source. BNOD Designs. BNO Designs. You don't agree that that's a real source? All right. Let's see. Jesse Potts said, "What is the best path for trading or dumping players for the Clippers?" Well, I kind of laid out who I think they should trade. Everybody but Kawhi, Paul George, and Terrence Mann. Clippers fans, I would love to know what your opinion is on that. But I would just get either assets that you can trade in the offseason to fix their roster needs, which in my opinion is a true point guard and a above average center, or try to get that point guard or that above average center right now. Do one of those two things. Any more point guard ideas that the Clippers could get? Well, the good news, Rocket Heat asks, any other point guard ideas? Do you remember when Clipper fans were wondering, like, could we somehow flip Eric Bledsoe for John Wall? Remember when that was like the best idea out there? Well, now you don't have to worry about that because Eric Bledsoe can be off this team at the end of this season, right? And that opens up cap space. Honestly, the Clippers could have some serious cap space this offseason. They could. And then they could sign, without having to trade anybody, they could sign a point guard. So let me type in 2022 NBA free agents. And then we're going to look at who the potential point guards are out there. I'm going to tell you right now who the point guards are in this free agent class. So, nope. I'm just reading them. I'm like, nope. Patty Mills. No. I'll tell you who I'm saying no to. Kyrie Irving, no. Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Goran Dragic, Ricky Rubio, Pat Beverly, Dennis Schroeder, Avery Bradley, Colin Sexton, Corey Joseph. I mean, it's like all these point guards aren't good fits or they're too expensive. Alfred Payton, Gary Payton, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., Brandon Goodwin, Marcus Howard. Wow. Okay, never mind. There are no good point guard free agents this year. I'm sorry that I let you guys down with that. That's my bad. Yes, Fred VanVleet, Usman, Koreshi just said Fred VanVleet. Who's to say? I know that right now Pascal Siakam is looking like he's back and that the Raptors have won a lot of games. But like, dude, is there a chance that the Raptors might want to go young and you could flip a Brandon Boston, Keon Johnson, Amir Coffey, and a 2028 first for Fred VanVleet? Why not? I know that's a crazy thing to say, but no, Ricky Rubio would not be a good fit. He is not good enough. That's not as Ricky Rubio is average at best. I'm talking about someone who would be a real upgrade for them, okay? Not Ricky Rubio. Get out of here with that. No, not Eric Gordon. I'm talking about someone with real playoff potential. Ricky Rubio doesn't have that. Eric Gordon doesn't have that. Stop talking about, league average to below average point guards who are washed with no real postseason success. That's not what I'm talking about. Someone who said Fred VanVleet, I know that's kind of pie in the sky, but like, why not? Ben Simmons. Nope. Chris Paul, hilarious. Raul Neto. Again, Matias Medeiros. Dude, I mean, Raul Neto's good, right? But he's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, we're talking about the Clippers. Colin Sexton, no. Miles Turner. Yeah, Miles Turner. Yeah. I think Miles Turner would be an above average center for them. That's actually a really good idea. If you're going to put all of your assets out there, and we know that Miles Turner is out on the trade market, is there a trade that the Pacers would go for that involves some mixture of Marcus Morris, Luke Kennard, BJ Boston, a late first? I think so, man. Why not? The report is false, says Russell. But Russell, it's Bleacher Report, who is not, some random fan blog. It's from a reporter who covers the Clippers. And all I'm saying is that Paul George is potentially out. That is the report. That report right there is rock solid. Potentially. The Clippers are bracing for the fact that he could be out. Sarcasm 360 says, what happened to Paul George? So he injured his UCL, which is a ligament in his elbow. And if a pitcher in baseball hurts his UCL, he has something called Tommy John surgery, and he's out for 12 months. So yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Turner and Malcolm for Luke, Morris, and others. No, that's way too lopsided. No, sir. Karis LeVert? No. All right. How about D'Angelo Russell? I just don't think that there's anything that the Timberwolves would want from the Clippers roster. Michael Carosa, who is a legit AM Hoops viewer, says, Casey, is it a credible source? The only reason that I went on live right now is because the source is Bleacher Report. The reporter is a guy who covers the Clippers, and he has sources inside the Clippers that are saying, we are bracing for the fact that Paul George could be done for the season. That's all it is. They're not saying he is done for the season, any of that. So to me, this deserved a live and a chat for us to talk about what if this is true? What if this actually happens? What does the worst case scenario look like? By the way, they're going to have to decide this real soon because the trade deadline is February 10th. So if Paul George is done for the season, you need to kind of start deciding, what are we going to do at the deadline? Are we buyers? Are we sellers? And so they have to decide if PG is done for the season very soon, under a month. So I think we're going to find out. All right. Yep. All right, y'all. I think that's it. So look, I hope that this report is overblown, but right now it looks like one of the more fun, sneaky dark horse contenders in the West could be done for the rest of the season. And if that's true, we're going to see some major trades out of the Clippers. All right, y'all. I will see you at 5 Eastern for today's video on how the Celtics ruined an amazing future for themselves. It's a pretty sad story. All right, see you guys.